ask you, what if Congress should write a law and actually give it for enforcement, and it's taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says this law is unconstitutional? What happens? The law does not go, right? But what happens if the Congress enacts a law that is unconstitutional, and somebody appeals it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says it is constitutional? Let me ask you, will that law be enforced? It most certainly will be enforced. Even if a law goes against the Constitution, if the Supreme Court says that that law goes, it goes. So let me ask you, which is the most powerful branch of government? You know, most of the time when I ask this, people say, the executive. They enforce the law. But not really. The most powerful branch of government is the judicial branch, primarily the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And if you don't believe that, all you have to do is remember the election of the year 2000. A very contemporary event. You remember what happened in Florida? All the hanging chads? Well, you know, that'll stick in our memory forever. The fiasco of the hanging chads. And you know that you had lawyers involved, and they were taking it to this circuit court and to the appeals court, and the lawyers were fighting it. But when the Supreme Court said George Bush won, case closed. George Bush became President of the United States of America. And actually, the Supreme Court elected the President of the United States of America. Now, this is the scary thing. The Supreme Court presently has 5 Roman Catholic judges. John Roberts, the Chief Justice, Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas, Anthony Kennedy, and Samuel Alito. Within the next 8 years or so, some of the more liberal judges on the Supreme Court, Justice Ginsburg, for example, it was just operated on for, I think it was pancreatic cancer. And so many of these more liberal judges are going to pass. What if we had 1 or 2 more Roman Catholics named to the Supreme Court? You say, well, the justices are red-blooded Americans, you know, they're patriotic and they're really Christian. But you know, Roman Catholicism teaches that your first loyalty is to the church. Whatever the church commands, that's what you do. Even if it means setting the civil power on the back burner, you always do what the church says. You see, the problem is many Protestants today are fascinated by the papacy. And the reason why they're fascinated by the papacy is because the papacy fights for human rights, it fights for the poor, it fights for morality, it fights for conventional marriage, it fights for religion in America, it even fights for religious freedom. And so Protestants in the United States say, well, this system has definitely changed.